but it's a great crowd and a wonderful and historic day for all of us. Let me, as Secretary of the Interior and as a very proud member of President Barack Obama's cabinet, welcome all of you here to Interior, to this, what is now the fourth White House Tribal Conference that we have had in the last 4 years. It is truly historic. You know, President Obama back in 2008 made a commitment to Indian country. And as we have gone forward with these conferences now 4 years in a row, this is part of what I would call, in my vernacular, promises made and promises delivered. But it's more than just the fact that the leaders from Indian country from throughout the nation come here and gather with the leaders of the United States, the President and his cabinet, and other leading officials. But it is the fact that we are a problem-solving effort. This is an effort not only to report out on the progress that we have made together over the last year and over the last 4 years, but also to make sure that we're looking ahead, because we know that we have a lot more work to be done. It is not something that happens every day where you have the leaders of the tribal nations from throughout America in one place, and at the same time you have 8 members of the President's cabinet, along with the President of the United States, coming together at one place. That should, in and of itself, send a loud and clear message to everyone that Barack Obama understands the importance of Indian country and is committed to making sure that we continue to make progress in creating a new chapter on the nation-to-nation relationship between Indian country and the United States. Now, as the day goes on, you will have the opportunity to hear from Secretary Duncan on education issues, Secretary Sebelius on health and human services issues, Secretary Vilsack on Department of Agriculture issues, the Acting Secretary Rebecca Blank on the issues of commerce, Secretary Ray LaHood on matters of transportation, and Secretary Solis on matters of labor. In addition, you will hear from high-ranking officials of many other agencies, including on behalf of Attorney General Holder, the Department of Justice, on behalf of Secretary Geithner, the Treasury, on behalf of the Homeland Security and Secretary Napolitano, Craig Fugate, and others who will also be here. So it is a crowd that is a very important crowd. In addition, even yesterday, I made a call to someone who was here in the audience because a number of you had called and said you needed to learn a little bit more about energy and the role of FERC. So John Wellinghoff, the chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, is also here in the audience. Are you here, John? There he is. Stand up. Give him a round of applause. He said to me, I won't lay you down because it's important for Indian country. It's good to see you here, Chairman. Let me just quickly say that for us in this administration, for the President from day one, it has been a moral imperative that we do better, that we began a new chapter in Indian country. We're proud of the work that we've done. It's based on a moral imperative that we have. We recognize that the historic progress that we've made over the last 4 years is only the beginning, and we have a lot more to go. But it's important at times to look back and just take for a minute and reflect on what it is that we have done. We're proud of the work that we've done on completing the litigation on Cobell, on moving forward with leasing reforms, on the Tribal Law and Order Act, on so many other things that I believe represent comprehensive change. But we also know that there's more work to be done. I want to highlight just a few of these things because I think they're important as we start out this historic conference today. And when I became Secretary of Interior and the President asked me to highlight and work on these issues, I remember having a meeting at the time with my Assistant Secretary Larry Echohawk and our BIA regional directors. And they explained to me that we basically had a de facto moratorium in the prior administrations on taking land into trust. Well, since that time, the United States of America and the Bureau of Indian Affairs have worked hard and have processed over 1,000 applications taking land into trust in over 190,000 acres. That's a metric that we're very proud of. The Cobell litigation had essentially strangled the Department of Interior and the relationship with Indian country for multiple presidencies and for a very long time. But under the great leadership of Attorney General Holder and David Hayes, our Deputy Secretary, and Hillary Tompkins, and so many others that worked on that matter, we were able to bring that to resolution. The Cobell case now, with the final declarations from the U.S. Supreme Court, closes a dark and painful chapter that existed between the United States and Indian country. In addition, part of that legacy is Eloise Cobell's legacy, which is the creation of an educational trust fund that will help Native Americans around the country access to higher education. So in her absence, but in celebrating her life and her legacy, let's give Eloise Cobell a round of applause because she stood up for the right thing for America. Now, the President has been clear to us that those are important works, but there's more work to be done. And so we worked very hard with the tribes on trying to settle other aspects of trust litigation with the tribes themselves, and have over $1.1 billion now that have actually settled many of these cases around the country. But we know that the restoration of tribal homelands and dealing with these injustices of the past isn't sufficient, that we need to work hard to make sure that creating opportunity for Indian country is part of our agenda. And so the President has led the effort to resolve the long-standing water disputes that have been a part of Indian country and the states for so long. And so the signing by the President of 6 historic water rights agreements and the investment of nearly $2 billion means that the Taos Pueblo and the Amot Case Pueblos, including Pohuaque, Tesuque, San Ildefonso, and the Nambe Pueblos in New Mexico, as well as the Crow Tribe in Montana, the White Mountain Apache Tribe in Arizona, the Navajo Nation in New Mexico, and the Shoshone Paiute tribes in Nevada, they all now will have real wet water projects that now are under construction, and we're very proud of that work and recognize that we still have a lot more to do around the country. Now, you all know, as well as anybody else, how important energy is to the future of the United States of America, but also to Indian country. But it's important that we not leave Indian country behind as we move forward with the all of the above energy strategy of the President of the United States. And in that regard, we're proud that just in the last year, the Moapa Solar Project with the Paiute Indians of Nevada will be the first 350 megawatt solar project that has stood up on Indian lands. It is on the way. And as we have moved forward with renewable energy projects across the country, we're also proud of the fact that in places like Fort Berthold, we have a new economic revolution that is underway there at Fort Berthold, where hundreds of oil and gas leases now are producing significant oil and gas for the needs of the country and are creating new opportunities for that tribe. But we know that it's not just about water and the lifeblood of communities and energy to power our nation and to power Indian tribes. There's a lot more that we have to do on self-determination, and that's why the President was so proud in signing the Hearth Act, which creates new opportunities for tribal self-determination and sends the authority that was reposed so long in the Bureau of Indian Affairs to tribes themselves as these guidelines are created under the great leadership of Kevin Washburn. And Del Lavador, one of our key leaders in Crow, from the Crow Nation, who has been with us the last 3 years, took the lead in putting together the renovation of the tribal leasing regulations, which is the first update in 50 years. Essentially what they will do is when those applications come in, they won't just sit on somebody's desk, because the way that he wrote the regulations is if there is no action taken, they will be deemed to be approved. And so in the future, you don't have to wait. Let me quickly just run through a few other things. The President has been very supportive of investing in education, understanding the educational challenges that we face in Indian country. The $300 million that are now helping about 18,000 Indian students from the Recovery Act were invested in helping make schools better in the United States of America. Just in the last 2 days, the Bureau of Indian Education, the Department of Interior, signed an MOU with Secretary Arnie Duncan to make sure that the work of the last several years is one that we work on together. A lot of expertise at the Department of Education under Secretary Duncan's leadership, and we will work fully with him in implementing that MOU. In addition, with The Department of Education, as well as Health and Human Services, we at Interior have signed a memorandum that supports native languages as part of the culture of Native Americans, and we as the United States are committed to make sure that the native languages are not forgotten. One other key issue which is important for all of us, you recognize more than anybody else that education really is a keystone to the future opportunity for your children and your grandchildren and for yourselves. And so what we have done is to make sure that those opportunities are going to be created under this MOU with Secretary Duncan, but safe communities are important. So the Tribal Law and Order Act that was signed by the President will put a new focus on tribal communities. Here at Interior, we revamped the process for BIA law officers and have increased the number of applicants for those positions by 500%. By 500%. And we're overseeing the largest hiring increase in BIA law enforcement in the history of the United States. And finally, we've taken on a pilot project on violent crime reduction in specific targeted reservations around the country. We have already seen promising results with a 35% reduction in violent crime in those reservations. This year we're adding 2 additional reservations, the Rosebud Sioux Tribe in South Dakota and the San Carlos Apache Tribe in Arizona, and we expect to see great progress in those reservations as well. As important as all those things are, at the end of the day, it also is about just having a respect for the sovereignty of Indian tribes and making sure that the United States of America is engaged in a robust consultation process with Native Americans. That has been a key effort which has been led by the President and by the White House, and we have the government-to-government consultations that are taking place across the country. Now, let me just finally say there's a lot more work to be done. We could list 100 items, but we know, for example, that Carcieri is an issue that needs to be fixed. The President has made strong statements to the Congress, and hopefully we'll see a fix that will create a correction to this Supreme Court decision that frankly was not decided in the right way. For all of us here in the Obama administration, we are honored that you would give us of your time today. Sure, we are here in Washington, and this is an agenda that the President and his team strongly believe in. But you have traveled here from throughout the United States and from places far away in Alaska to come and have a dialogue with us, to hear from us on what we have done, but also to give us your ideas on what it is that we ought to be doing. Now, for me, it is historic that we're able to continue to build on this great foundation the last 4 years for another 4 years. That means we can do a lot more in terms of empowering Indian country. And as we do so, our covenant to all of you is that we'll do it hand in hand with the leadership of great people, including Jody, Gillette, and Charlie Galbraith at the White House, who have been so instrumental in pulling together this conference. One more final point before we start the festivities of the flag ceremonies and the songs is I just want to thank the people who have worked on this conference so hard. The night before last, I was in the office about 10 p.m., and there was a staff working on pulling together this conference. The packets that you have received, the bulletins that you have received. So I would like Jenny Sisk and all, Callie Handley and everybody else who's been working on it to stand up, and please join me in telling them thank you for the great work that they've done. With that, we'll have the presentation of the colors by the Native American women warriors, accompanied by the representatives of the Navajo Code Talkers, and please remain standing for the invocation.